In this Baldur's Gate 3 video, we're going to be taking a look at 3 early game rogue builds, and these are all multi-class builds, and I think rogue is one of those classes in BG3 that really lends itself well to multi-classing. It brings a lot to the table, and because it doesn't have extra attack like a lot of the martial classes have, you don't miss out on that by like leaving rogue at level 3 or, you know, something like that. So you can just dip into rogue a bit and pick up some great stuff that, you know, because it's kind of front-loaded, and go into other classes if you want as well, which I think is great. So the first build we're going to take a look at in this video is an Arcane Trickster Wizard hybrid. This is 3 levels of Arcane Trickster and 3 levels of Wizard. And what I really like about Arcane Trickster in this game, I think it's probably a very slept-on subclass, is that they still have all the damage that a regular rogue does from their sneak attack, and rogues gain the bulk of their damage from doing sneak attack every round. But they also have a lot of utility with the spells they can cast, because they have things that, you know, will give them sneak attack. Like, for instance, if they set blind on an enemy, they'll have advantage so they can sneak attack. Or if they knock an enemy prone, they will have advantage so they can sneak attack. Or if they put an enemy to sleep, etc. They have a lot of ways they can gain sneak attack when they wouldn't normally be able to. I don't have problems on my other rogues gaining sneak attack, so that's not necessarily an issue. But there are places in the game where this will be very useful. Particularly, they have a lot of things also that help outside of combat, like Minor Illusion, which can be used to move enemies or groups of people to certain places so they can slip by. There's just a lot of flexibility that they can have that, you know, other rogues aren't going to have. And why I really love multi-classing this with Wizard is that they use the same spellcasting ability modifier, Intelligence. And by taking 3 levels of Wizard, once you hit level 6 in Rogue, you'll actually be able to have level 3 spell slots. So you can upcast some of these spells, but also because Wizards can learn spells from scrolls, they'll be able to learn level 3 spells like Fireball or Lightning Bolt, or, you know, some of the more heavy-hitting spells that can add some firepower to the arsenal of the Rogue. And once you get to level 9 in Rogue and you have 3 levels of Wizard, which is where I would take this build eventually, you'll be able to cast those spells like Fireball and Lightning Bolt from stealth, and the targets will automatically have disadvantage on their saving throws, which I find incredible. And I don't think you can really take advantage of that passive effect as well if you don't have at least level 3 spells. And another really good thing about this build too is that the Warped Headband of Intellect can be found very early on in this game that gives you 17 intelligence on the character you equip it with. Your Wizard is probably typically going to have 18 pretty early on in the game, probably by the time you find that or close to it. So this is a great item to give to someone like an Arcane Trickster that's probably not going to take their intelligence higher than that. They're going to be focused on dexterity in order to get their melee and ranged attacks really strong, but having the extra intelligence on them is nice. And the next build I want to show you is 3 levels of Assassin and 3 levels of Gloomstalker. And what I really love about the Assassin subclass of Rogue is that it encourages you to trigger combat from outside of combat, meaning like you're not going to just like walk up to a bunch of enemies and fight, like you're going to sneak up and fire into them. And why you might do that is because normally when you're doing this as a rogue or any other class, if you fired a shot with your bow into a group of enemies, and let's say you hit one or you killed one, combat would trigger, and then you wouldn't get another action on your turn. Like you just used your action to do that. But Assassins, they replenish their bonus action and action at the beginning of combat no matter what. So they fire that shot in, and then combat starts, and then they can fire another shot. And what's also really great is that they have advantage on that first attack against any enemy that hasn't taken a turn yet. So they're going to be able to sneak attack with very high hit chance, like on their next attack immediately following that, which makes them incredibly deadly at starting fights. And what's phenomenal about Gloomstalker is they're going to get like a bonus attack on their first round of combat, that they can move further, they can get basically a free attack, and it'll deal more damage. So if you lobbed a shot in with your Assassin Gloomstalker and then triggered combat, now you'd get to go with advantage and it would hit harder, and then you could attack with that attack, and then you would get to attack again after that. So it's a really, really strong pairing because it basically allows you to do like 3 attacks in a row if you start from outside of combat. And that's just at level 6, right? Like if you take 2 more levels of Gloomstalker after this, you're going to gain extra attack from Ranger because that's what they get at level 5. It means that you would actually have 4 attacks if you did that combination, which would be incredibly deadly. And there are things that these 2 classes share in common that synergize very nicely. For instance, rogues typically need very high perception so they can spot hidden objects and traps and disarm them without their party getting blown up. And that falls under wisdom. And rangers need very high wisdom in order to cast their spells effectively, or at least their hostile ones. So there is some synergy there. So on a build like this, you would want dexterity, wisdom, and constitution. That's probably where you would put most of your ability points. And rangers gain fighting styles at level 2, and you can either pick 2-weapon fighting or archer, which are both great for rogue. And, you can get that extra hit chance with archery in order to be able to land your shots more. You can deal more damage with your offhand. These are really, really good choices. And, Rangers can bring that to the table as well. Just a really, really deadly pairing that just keeps getting stronger throughout the game. I think people will absolutely love to play this one. And this brings me to my final build for this video. And this is a 3 Thief, 3 War Domain Cleric. And you might not think they have a ton of synergy, but there is a lot of good synergy between these two. First of all, Thieves have an extra bonus action every turn in combat, and this is huge because Clerics have a lot of good bonus actions. Healing Word is a fantastic bonus action if you need to top somebody up, or you need to pick them up off the ground. You also have Sanctuary that can keep one of your allies from even being targeted. Maybe they're weak already or they're squishy. But War Domain Clerics can also make a second attack using a bonus action here, and this can allow the Thief to basically go into stealth, get a sneak attack, and then fire another shot with their bonus action and get 2 attacks on a turn from the very beginning of the game once they have this, combination. It's really, really strong. But there's also more synergies than that. For instance, Thieves need Perception, as I mentioned earlier, and Clerics use Wisdom just like Rangers do, and that Perception falls under Wisdom, so that's a nice synergy as well. But also, I feel like Thieves can use concentration spells really strongly in this game, and I think a lot of people might be sleeping on this because, they can throw something like Bless on their entire group. Let's say a level 2 spell slot of Bless. They get everyone, including themselves, and then they go into stealth. Well, nothing's going to target them while they're in stealth. Everyone in your party is going to have Bless, and then on their turn that comes out again, they pop out, they shoot something for sneak attack, go back into hiding, and Bless continues to maintain on everyone. And it's really, really strong to just have somebody who never gets broken of Bless the whole time. Or maybe they're running Enhance ability in order to have better perception checks while they're running around on the landscape, so they can find all those hidden things and traps a lot easier. They can just buff themselves. Or maybe they use Enhance ability on Dexterity so that they have advantage on stealth checks while they're going through stealthy areas of the game. That's huge too. There is a lot of synergy here between these two, and you can basically make a build here that's like your support and utility in one. So maybe you don't want to bring Astarion or Shadowheart. This is a good option to fill in that gap, and you also have some firepower, being able to use your bonus actions for attacks. And another thing is you could use Trickery Domain for this as well, and you're going to see this in our Shadowheart video, because one of the things that Trickery Domain Clerics get is Pass Without a Trace at level 2. This is one of the spells they gain. And what this does is it gives them plus 10 on their stealth checks and everyone in their party plus 10. That is absolutely huge, and that they maintain concentration on it. But imagine plus 10, plus plus 7 proficiency at this point, plus plus 3 or plus 4 from Dexterity. They basically can't get lower than a 21 on their stealth check. It's pretty hard to fail a stealth check when you minimally roll like a 21. That's incredibly high, and that makes them very good at hiding in combat and outside of combat, and incredibly stealthy. And they'll also, on top of that, have all the other things that I mentioned from Cleric already. They just won't have War Priest, which, allows them to use their bonus action to attack, which is the downside. So you can have a stealthier Cleric and go Trickery, or you can have a more combat-focused Cleric and go War Domain. The choice is kind of up to you. So that wraps up our video on 3 early game rogue builds. I hope you guys found it interesting and informative and inspired you to maybe think outside the box a little bit with rogues. I really love rogue in this game. It is a ton of fun to play. I learned so much doing these videos, and I can't wait to, get out proper build guides for rogue at endgame so we can really get into depth on some of the things you can do. As always, if you have more tips for other players, make sure to leave them in the comments, and if you have questions, leave them there as well, and I will answer them as quickly as I can.